If you've ever watched your kiddo struggle to figure out why other kids won't share their Legos, or why sarcasm flies over their little head like a rogue Nerf dart, this next resource is going to make your jaw drop. Meet Michelle Garcia Winner. She's not just a speech and language pathologist with a master's degree. She's the CEO and founder of the Social Thinking Methodology, and a total game changer in how kids, and let's be real, parents too, learn the unspoken rules of social life. Michelle specializes in social cognition, basically the brain's people skills, and she's built tools, strategy, and resources that help our ADHD kiddos crack the code on friendships, conversations, and self-regulation without making them feel broken or less than. If your child struggles with reading the room, making friends, or handling the roller coaster of social life, Michelle's work is a lifeline. You can learn more at socialthinking.com, or you can click the link in the podcast description, because thriving socially isn't about faking normal, it's about understanding it. Welcome back to Chaos and Caffeine, the podcast for parents who love their kids fiercely and are still wildly tired. Today's episode is the official kickoff of our New Year Less Chaos series, and I could not have picked a better human to start us off. I'm joined by Peggy Gomula, ADHD educator, parent coach, and one of those rare professionals who doesn't just study ADHD, she actually understands what it looks like at 6:42 a.m. on a Monday morning when nobody has on socks and everyone is melting down. Peggy's work is different. She doesn't lead with compliance, punishment, or just try harder. She leads with how ADHD brains actually function, why transitions are so dang brutal, and how parents can stop fighting their kids' nervous systems and start working with them instead. In this episode, Peggy breaks down practical, realistic ways to get your ADHD lives back on track after the holiday break. But here's the magic part. These strategies aren't just for January. They're for every long weekend, every school break, or every moment when routines fall apart and you're left wondering if you just ruined everything. We're talking about resets that don't require perfection, parenting with connection instead of constant correction, and how to build momentum without burning yourself or your kid to the ground. If you're craving less chaos, fewer power struggles, and tools that actually represent ADHD brains, you, my friend, are in the right place. Let's welcome Peggy to the mic. Peggy, welcome to Chaos and Caffeine.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Me too. I am honored to have you. It seems like my ADHD schedule, mom life, and then other business things going on. We've been trying to make it happen for weeks, and we're finally here. So I'm very excited.
Me too.
So first, for anybody that is new to you, do you mind telling them a little bit about you?
No, not at all. So I have ADHD. Husband has ADHD. 3 grown daughters have ADHD, and I have 6 grandchildren that I'm keeping my fingers crossed have ADHD. So I consider myself a little bit of an ADHD snob, and the fact that I just think there's a little bit something more special about us. So I am hoping all those grandchildren have it. So I've done a lot. I've been a teacher in my other life, but I've been a parent coach for about 20 years. And I've worked at the Hallowell Tadaro ADHD and Behavioral Health Center for about 10 years. So, and then one of the reasons I got into parent coaching was my second daughter, who I do not have HIPAA laws with, so I do talk about her. She was really difficult. And so I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional family, so I didn't really know how to parent, much less a child with ADHD. So I yelled a lot. I heard my oldest say that mom was on her broomstick again and decided I should get some help. Saw a therapist. We didn't have parent coaches in those days, and worked with her to get all of my issues under control, which then helped me to be calmer, which then changed the whole thing in our family. So that was my early life. And then I moved here back into Seattle in 2015, saw a sign about the Hallowell Todaro Center, went in. Leslie Todaro, I consider to be a visionary. She hired me, and we've been together for 10 years, and we have been exceedingly successful.
Yeah, yeah. I can't even begin to say how humbled I am to even have you here. You guys are like, as you said, the visionaries. I mean, when I think about Hallowell Todaro, that is like the ADHD parenting help that we all need. So to have you here, I'm going to ask as many questions as I can in this 40-minute session.
Go for it, and thank you very much.
So, this episode is kicking off a New Year Less Chaos campaign where hopefully we can give parents a little bit of insight on getting their lives back on track in 2026. But I'd first like to start on what you think we're already getting right as ADHD parents.
I think we are getting right the fact that I think more parents are understanding that we need to be calm. I mean, bottom line, I think that's the biggest thing. Calm and connection is the other one. We know that everybody with ADHD, connection is majorly important. Relationship. If kids have a teacher in school that they like, they will do really, really well. If they have a teacher that they don't like, they're not going to work as hard. That travels into parenting as well. If they feel that their parent has their back, if they feel that their parent's understanding the behaviors, then the relationship grows stronger and they become more cooperative. So I do think that a lot of parents are understanding that today.
Yeah, me too. I think the small transition of from I'm an 80s baby, so it used to just be, oh, there's hyperactive boys, to now we're learning. Parents want to learn more about ADHD, and I think that is wonderful. And I think it's helping all of us all the way around.
I think so too. And one of the reasons I like working at Hallowell is because I know that the information that we have is correct and up to date and research based. So all of that to me is important. As you well know, there's a lot out there on the internet, and a lot of it is wonderful. And then there's a lot that's not so wonderful. And so it's just kind of nice. I feel really good about the fact that I can give information that is up to date and valid for what they should hopefully do. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So you said that the thing that we're getting right is understanding that we have to be calm. As a former mom, would you mind walking us through how we...
I think calm is probably one of the hardest things, to tell you the truth. I said I was yelling. It took me 3 years before I really felt confident that no matter what my kids did or what they told me, that I could pretty much hold it together, or at least know that I needed to walk away and calm myself down. I remember that I had a beautiful picture in my house that my uncle had given me. And sometimes when my kids were crazy and I was crazy, I would just stand there and look at that picture and just breathe and look at that picture going, okay, we can do this. Breathe, Father. And I think everybody finds what works for them. But I do think the other piece is taking really good care of yourself, because unless you have the energy to be the parent you want to be, it's going to be really, really hard. And I know everybody talks about, oh my gosh, self-care. And every time I say that to a mom, her eyes roll in the back of her head and she looks at me like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I understand. I get it. I really do. I've got 3 daughters with young kids, so I know what that looks like. It doesn't have to be. It can be tiny little moments. It can just be sit down on the floor with a pet if you have one, or walk outside and just breathe for a few minutes. It's not anything that's long. It's just taking little tiny breaks. When I first was working with the therapist and she talked about self-care, and I was that mom that rolled my eyes in the back of my head because I'm like, I have 3 children. There's not a lot of time here. The first thing that I did, sat down and actually ate lunch in a chair. I set a timer for 20 minutes. I made a relatively healthy lunch instead of a bar that I was grabbing as I was driving somewhere. And then I took a book, and that 20 minutes, amazingly, made it easier for me at night to get through. My husband traveled all the time, so I was a single mom a lot of the time. And so just sitting down for 20 minutes in the middle of the day gave me the energy to get through that night. So it's not big things. It's not going away for a weekend, which would be lovely if you have time. That's wonderful. But it is just taking a little bit of time for yourself and centering and getting to know whew, that I'm just going to be fine.
Yeah. One of the greatest things I think I did in my transformation period of attempting calm was childproof my house so that I could take 5 minutes and not have to answer any questions and not have to worry about him hurting himself. So that for just those 5 minutes, go
Yeah.
wild and I'll sit here and drink my coffee, you know? And it
Yeah.
sounds so simple, but it really, really helped.
It does. It does. I think, especially for moms, we keep a lot in our head all the time. We're the ones usually that know the appointments. We know when they're supposed to go to the dentist. We know when the school functions are. So just sometimes getting rid of that chatter, especially in an ADHD brain, I think just, our body kind of goes into the, okay, we can do this now, get back up again and get involved. So, um, kudos to you for knowing that, understanding that, and actually following through.
Thank you. I feel like most of my parenting tricks is learning how to reparent myself because it's so easy to say be calm, but until I realized that I was triggered and not calm, there was nothing I could do. So it working on my self-awareness was the key to learning how to parent.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I remember times when I was yelling and in my head saying to myself, "You sound like your mother. Why are you doing this?" and not being able to stop. So working with the therapist, working with somebody that knew how to help me, again, reparent, go back, go through some of those hard times and release them, enabled me to then finally learn how to stay calm, which is why often, well, not often, but well, often when I'm working with parents, and it is really hard for them and they cannot get calm, I do recommend that they go to therapy if they're not in therapy, because sometimes you just have to have that little bit of help. And then we can, if we get HIPAA, ROIs, release of information, then we can work with that therapist who's working with them. And we also do at the Hallowell Center, it works the same way. If their child is with a coach or with a therapist, we can then talk to those therapists or coaches so that we're getting the kid side as well as getting the parent side, because we know that both sides can see things completely differently. And it just helps us. We call it a wraparound service.
I think that would be fantastic because half of my parenting battles is us getting on the same page. Not that we're far apart, we're just seeing it very differently. So I think that would probably be very, very helpful.
Yes. And I do work with a lot of parents, and that isn't very often the number one thing is can we look at this through the same lens is how I look at it. Like instead of the lens of they're misbehaving, let's look at it the lens of they're struggling. And if they're struggling, what can we do to help them versus the lens that says they're misbehaving, we need to have some kind of a consequence.
So, Peggy, having a guru in front of me, having ADHD yourself, having children with ADHD, and then becoming an ADHD parent coach, how the heck do we do it? How do we ADHD parent while having ADHD?
Well, I will say that is a hard challenge by all means. Again, as a parent coach, I work with everybody that's different. I mean, every client that I work with in the last 20 years, I have never parent coached anybody the same way. So every family's different, everybody's different. I think some of it is just the forgiveness in some ways of I have ADHD. I am not going to look like Mrs. So and so down the road because Mrs. So and so gets up before 8 o'clock, somehow gets dressed, somehow gets makeup on, somehow drives her kids to school looking like she, just came out of a spa. And I'm in pajamas and my hair's a mess and I haven't had coffee yet and my kids are screaming in the car. So I think some of that is just saying, okay, this is okay. You do what you can. And then you throw out some things. Everybody talks about having, those star charts. Well, number one, my kids lied all the time. So I felt like they were teaching them to lie because oh yeah, I made my bed. And having ADHD, I'm like, I don't think you made your bed, but okay, here's a star. And then I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep track of it. It was just one more thing on my plate that was like, so we didn't do it. And so we never had chore charts for my kids. As my husband said, if we had them, all we would have done is yell at them. So we just worked as a team as a family. If we had something had to get done, then we all kind of pitched in and did it versus everybody having a different chore. Because again, as you know, with ADHD, that gets really boring and they don't want to do that. And I don't want to do that. And then doing it together is the whole body doubling thing. It's so much easier to do things with somebody. So if they needed to clean a bathroom, we would clean a bathroom together. And I also looked at that as a connection time, a one-on-one time. And people think one-on-one times, again, have to be go to McDonald's or go get ice cream or play a game. Well, sometimes it's cleaning the bathroom because it's just the two of you. You're not looking at each other. And sometimes a lot of stuff can come out in those things in that place. So yeah, I mean, again, it's not easy, but I do think you have to understand you are not, it's going to have to be individual to you, and you've got to figure out what works for you and not listen to the chatter on the whole other side.
If 2025 felt like one long game of whose executive function died today, welcome to the club. But 2026, we are not doing another year of white knuckling it through school mornings, emotional avalanches, and the mystery of why a simple worksheet can turn into a full-blown family crisis. This is the year we get help from people who actually get ADHD. And that's exactly where Hallowell Todaro comes in. Their team doesn't just treat symptoms. They understand the full picture, the wiring, the emotions, the chaos, the strengths, all of it. Their approach is compassionate, science-backed, empowering, and honestly, a breath of oxygen for burned out parents who are tired of feeling like they're failing. From diagnostic clarity to individualized treatment plans, coaching, therapy, and support that actually works in real life, not just on paper, Hallowell Todaro gives families the tools to regulate, connect, and finally feel hope again. So here's to new year, less chaos, and partnering with experts who make ADHD feel less like a daily disaster and more like a journey we can navigate with confidence. Thank you for that reframe, because I am the mom who's constantly trying to keep my hyperactive kiddo busy. And sometimes it could be just taking out the trash or straightening up the living room for that connection time. It doesn't have to be an arcade or dinner or something like that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, you're welcome.
One thing I think that is helpful when you have ADHD and you're parenting ADHD, if you're open to sharing your coping strategies, that could help your kid develop coping strategies rather early instead of struggling throughout life. So there is some positives in there. We just have to desperately dig for them.
Yes. And modeling, right? We know that kids are going to learn much more from what you model. So when you model, and I call it live your life out loud, when you model something that's a strategy for you and you're talking about it, then they're picking it up. They might not pick it up today, but if you keep doing that and they keep hearing that, eventually it's amazing what happens down the line. Again, my kids are probably your age because they were 80 babies. And I see so much of what they're doing today with their kids that I did. And I never sat down and taught them, hey, this is what you should do as a parent, because as a parent coach, I do not parent coach my own children. But I see the same things. I see the way that they're doing it. So yes, modeling, hey, I'm going to the store, so I have to get a list, and then I have to write my list, and I have to check the pantry, and now I'm going to put my coat on and find my purse and my keys, and oh, look, they're in the same place that they always are because I put them there. All of that is helping them with strategies. So yes, it can be helpful.
Ooh, losing keys is like number one at 7:30 a.m. on a Monday morning. So that's a good strategy.
I have a place in our kitchen that I hang my keys on. My husband, for some reason, still can't remember to do that, and we are constantly looking for his keys. For the most part, mine usually, I shouldn't say all the time, usually mine will make it up there. But that's a strategy for me for ADHD, so that I'm not running around when I'm supposed to be somewhere going, okay, where were they the last time I had them?
Yeah. Whoever invented the AirTag for your keys find them on your phone is a genius.
My oldest daughter just told my husband that yesterday. She said, Dad, I'm getting you an air tag for your keys. So there you go.
He will probably appreciate it if he doesn't lose it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out some, I don't know, maybe glue it on there in some way, crazy glue maybe, so it can't come off.
Yeah. So, Peggy, now I want to dive into what can we do in 2026 to have less chaos as ADHD parents? We've already talked a little bit about self-care and finding our calm. What else can we add to the mix?
So I think the first thing, and I actually got this from my oldest daughter as we were talking about all of this, we know transitions are hard. So we know that going back to school for these kids is going to be hard. And for some parents, going back to work is going to be hard because a lot of us have taken vacation during this time. Her first thing, which really actually was a little surprising to me, was to talk it over with your partner and to get on the same page with your partner. What's important? What is the most important thing that we want to do? Let's put things in priority order so that we know we can't suddenly change everything, both for people with ADHD and kids with ADHD. It's going to be overwhelming. Nothing's going to happen. So just getting together with your partner and talking about, okay, what are we going to work on first? And then also understanding with your partner that there's going to have to be a lot of grace in this time. You're going to have to give up on some things. If you, again, you take what's most important for you and you go with that one and let some of the other stuff go. Not quite sure why, but there seems to be this idea that we have to teach our children everything at like 5 years old, that they have to be independent at 5 years old. They have to get dressed by themselves at 5 years old. They have to, I can't even imagine some of that. But so the idea is let's let some stuff slide for right now. We've got lots of time with kids. Let some things slide. So I think that the first thing is getting that understanding so that you and your partner are working on the same page, because that's going to make it easier for your kids if there's one way to do things. And then going back to reconnection, I think that's probably the second thing, making sure that before school starts, let's say, before we get into that chaos, what can you do? Can you take a walk with the kids? Can you have some fun? Can you play some board games? Can you just really connect with them? Because we also know during this holiday season that you probably haven't had a lot of connections with them. A lot of people have family in, or they're going to parties, or all this other stuff is going on. So let's just bring in the wagons as a family, close it up, have some calm time together, do some fun things, and reconnect. I think that's going to be really helpful because we know, again, reconnection, more cooperation. And then again, I think we go back to slow. What do we want to do first? Let's not try to rush things if we need to be more helpful during that time. So normally our child maybe gets dressed by themselves, right? We say, go get dressed. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know many kids with ADHD that you can say that to. But normally they maybe get dressed mostly on their own. And now they're laying on the floor going, I can't do this. Do we want to make a big fight out of that and make them do that? Or do we want to just, again, a little grace? Okay, sweet potato, I'll help you. Let me help you with your shoes. So that we're getting them back into the routine that they haven't been in. I mean, I don't know about your children or child, but my grandchildren have been running around in pajamas for like the last week and a half. So there haven't been a whole lot of clothes to put on. So again, can we help them? Can we give them a little bit that we can do that? I think we also can start a little bit earlier than the morning of, can we practice maybe getting teeth brushed, or what is the routine, or at least talking about this is what's going to look like next week, right? We're going to do this first. I'm going to wake you up. Then you're going to go to the bathroom. Then I'm going to help you brush your teeth. And some parents I know bring their clothes for their kids into the kitchen just so that they can have an eye on them. Because if we leave them in those lovely bedrooms of theirs, whoa, there's going to be a lot of stuff up there that they're going to want to play with. And again, they're not used to doing anything fast because we haven't had to do that for the most part during the holidays. It's been, get up and be in your pajamas. So I think that's a piece. And that means, unfortunately, that you as a parent have to get up earlier because I think it's important for you to get ready. You need your shower, you need to be dressed, you need to have all of that done, especially in these first few weeks, so that you are available and you're not rushing around getting frustrated because you can't get dressed or you have to be at a meeting or whatever. So I think you getting ready first during this time is probably another really important piece of that. I think, again, we go back to living your life out loud. We go back into talking through everything. You're going to put your pajamas on, and I'm going to go downstairs and start cooking breakfast so that we're verbalizing everything that's going on around us so that everybody hears everything. None of this means it's going to be perfect by any stretch of the means. But again, find what works. For ADHD, it might work a few days, and then you got to change things up. But figure things out, at least, again, slow, talk about it, all that stuff. Warnings ahead of time. School's going to start in 4 days. School's going to start in 3 days. Because we know that transitions are hard. So with kids with ADHD, if we can give a lot of warnings that this is going to happen, again, that goes back to processing speed. We know that it's slower for a lot of people with ADHD, takes them much longer to process. So if we tell them 5 days before and 4 days and 3 days, it just helps them to come to terms with it, which is going to happen. So I think that's a piece. We talked about self-care. Again, make time for you. Find some pieces in there, depending on how many kids you have and what the ages are. I love your idea of doing the whole house so that's all baby-proofed, and that way you don't have to worry. We go back to executive functions, supporting those, using alarms, using timers, visual timers. I used to set my kids' clothes out at night. No guarantee that they're going to wear them in the morning, but at least it's a start. And then backpacks by the door. I always did lunches at night just because it was easier to get them all done, and we didn't one less thing that we had to worry about in the morning. And I know that everybody, a great majority of people today think that your children should make their lunch on their own. And I will honestly tell you that my children never, ever, all the way through high school, never made their lunch on their own. Their dad traveled. He used it as a connection point. He used to put notes in it and do anything. I just dropped a protein in every morning. And I actually had a client a few months ago. I had a client who said to me, well, can they make a lunch now? And I was like, well, yeah, they're like in their 30s and 40s and they kids, I would imagine they're making a lunch. So again, we think we have all these things. These are the 14 things to do before they go to college. My kids never did laundry, their own laundry, and they never made their lunches, and they're fine today. So again, it's that for my family worked really well. It's not going to work for every family, but it's getting to see what is important in theirs. Where are their strengths in their executive functions? Where can I help strengthen theirs? Where can I pick up some of the slack in where I know it's going to be harder for them? Those kind of things. Eventually they will learn. Again, I'm old enough to understand that I've got kids that are older, and I'm sure I made 1,000 mistakes coming through. Positive I did. And yet they're still okay. They're still fine. So again, some of that is that forgiveness piece back again. And then I think the last thing that I have on my list anyway today would be make your life easier. Make macaroni and cheese for dinner out of a box if that's what you need to do in that day. Meals don't have to be great for the first week or so. Ease into things so that you're making your life easier. If the house is a mess and chaos is hard for you, because it is for some people with ADHD, then start putting things in closets and shutting the door for right now, and then go back to it later because it'll still be in the closet. So those kind of things that if the house is not clean, it's not clean. It'll get that way in maybe week 2 or 3. We don't, again, have to have all those same really intense ideas in our head that thinks that everything has to be perfect, everything has to be the same.
Yeah. And I blame social media because before it was social media, it was parenting magazines and TV shows. But now it's like you scroll on social media and you see these perfect pictures of these families, and then you look around and your house is a complete poop show and you feel bad. But I think that's everybody. I don't think social media is real. I think it's the highlight reel, and we're judging ourselves based off of those picture perfect images.
I would totally agree with you. In the olden days, when my kids were coming through, we only had it once a year, basically, because it was at Christmas when everybody wrote those Christmas letters that were like, oh, Johnny did this and Susie's got straight A's. And every year I just kept saying, I just want to send one that says, like, my kid is flunking and this one has, is in juvie right now. I just because it was everybody was perfect. And our house was far from perfect. It was very chaotic, and as hard as I think it is to raise kids with ADHD, I also think that it is, if you step back enough and you look through that a different lens, it is so fun and so joyous, and they just make life so exciting. And maybe because I have ADHD, I need that more than other people do, but I just think that if it's fun if you can figure out how to do fun things to get things done. One of my ones that is amazing to me about how much it's remembered is to get my kids to clean up the kitchen after dinner. We started to have a dance party. So I'd turn on really loud music and we would all dance, but we would dance like over to the table and pick up a dish and put that over there. And we would get the kitchen all cleaned up because everybody's dancing and going around. I have friends of my daughter who's in her 40s have come back to me and said, oh, we loved the dance parties at your house. Not remembering that they were cleaning the kitchen at all, just the dance party piece. So up the dopamine with the music, with the dancing, that gets them to be more cooperative. And then we get the kitchen cleaned without me telling them 422 times, put your plate in the sink or put your plate in the dishwasher. So I think fun things are really important for people with ADHD because no dopamine means no motivation to do things you don't want to do. We also don't like to be told what to do. We have a really hard time with people saying you have to do this. So not saying you have to clean up the table, but instead dancing around and picking up the plate gets it done in a way that makes that relationship, again, stay stronger.
Yeah. I have a competitive Henry, and so for us, it was always, can you clean up before mom can clean up? So we
Mhm.
had a few rush minutes, but it got it done really
Mhm.
quickly. So
Yep,
whatever
yeah.
works.
Again, that's sort of, we know that competition is one of the big ways that we can motivate people with ADHD. One of mine was always, I can get upstairs into the bathroom before you can, right? And boom, we're having a race. Now, it was good for me. I got my exercise because I'm running up the stairs and I'm getting them into the bathroom to get their teeth brushed or whatever else we needed to do. So we know that competition is one of the big ways that we can do that. Um, and something they're passionate about is another one that does that. Interest, something that's new. Urgency, but urgency is not hurry up and let's get out the door. Urgency is more of, especially with the older kids, I have a paper due tomorrow. I've had it for 6 weeks, but it's due tomorrow. I'm finally going to sit down and do it because I have to get it done, which is very important for older kids, for teachers and parents. There has to be an end date when we give kids a job. We can't just say, hey, you need to get your paper done. It has to be, oh, you need to get your paper done by Tuesday, so that we are putting that end date so that that urgency then comes in. If we don't do that, it doesn't get done. So it would be the same thing in the house. You have to clean your room by Saturday at 10 o'clock, as opposed to go clean your room, because go clean your room isn't going to get much done.
Yeah. When you said transitions are hard, that basically explains like 75% of my ADHD parenting life. So I wanted to add two things that worked for me there. One was asking my kid what he needed. Homework transition is really hard for us. So finally, I just came to him as a desperate mom. I think he was in first grade. And I said, okay, this is really hard for us every day. We cannot argue every day. What do you need from me? And my little tiny wise baby Yoda told me exactly what he needed, and I was blown away. And I think that worked for a couple of reasons. I think because he was expressing his needs, he was advocating for himself, but I think it gave him like some autonomy over his life of what's happening. The other thing there that my friends really make fun of me for when we're all at the park for like a huge friend gathering, I count down from like 10 to 1, and the kids think it's in minutes, but really that's over like an hour time. They don't care as long as they can hear, like, okay, now we're down to 9. And it works. It
Yeah.
completely works, even though it's really like 60 minutes instead of 10. It works. So you started that countdown 45 minutes ago. Like, hey, it worked.
Well, again, processing time, right? You're giving him time to process. The other one would be choices, always giving choices. Because again, it's back to that autonomy piece, right? Do you want to put on your socks first, or do you want to put on your shirt first? Do you want to do your math homework first or your social studies homework first? So giving them, the more choices we give them, again, the more they feel confident. I think one of the things we don't understand, or a lot of people don't realize, is that research tells us that kids with ADHD are getting about 20 negatives interactions a day. And so the more that we can give them more control, the more that we can give them more positive interactions, the easier it is going to be for them to feel good about themselves. And that's a huge thing for kids with ADHD, is that lack of confidence and that lack of self-esteem.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think that people misconstrue it as they think that people are intentionally, trying to tear our kids down, but it's not that at all. It's that, the redirection, even if it's a gentle redirection, is still a redirection of a signal of like, okay, I'm not doing this right.
Mhm.
I think that people are like, oh, nobody's out here tearing your kids down, but it's not intentionally. It's just how it's perceived to be.
Yes, it is very much that. My oldest daughter's oldest daughter was in school, and her teacher walked up and said, "Sweetheart, you probably don't want to put your eraser into the pencil sharpener." Very sweetly, very nice, just the teacher worrying about her getting hurt, right? Nothing big. She was in this really awful mood for about a week, just angry and upset. And finally it came out that the teacher, and my daughter was like, well, was she mean? Oh no, she was nice. She just took that as that perception of the teacher doesn't like me, which then stayed with her for a week. And finally, when it came out, it was like, oh, okay. But there's that perception piece, right? She perceived that the teacher was mad at her or didn't like her. And you're right. When I talk to teachers, it's, you guys don't even know what you're saying. You don't even know what's happening inside their head. You're saying something completely innocent, and they're taking that. And that's, again, as a parent, why we really have to come in with the encouragement. It's really, really important to give them as much encouragement as we possibly can. And it's never big. It's always little tiny things like, oh, thank you. You actually came to the table and sat down today without me telling you 2 times. I love that. Thank you very much. Little thing.
Yeah. Just a small shift can do so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah, it can.
Peggy, I would very selfishly take up your last day of vacation. I could talk to you and ask millions of questions all day, but I want to be respectful of your time. I want you to let our listeners know how they could connect with Hallowell Todaro further.
So obviously you can Google Hallowell Todaro ADHD Center in Seattle, which is where I'm from. We Hallowell Todaro also has one right now in California, but those we're doing all their parent coaching down in California. So calling the center, getting on our website, it's just been redone a little bit, so there's a lot of information on that website. And calling, we offer a 90-minute consultation call where we talk, I learn about them, they learn about me. We see if that works out, and then they decide if they want parent coaching. So they don't have to decide, yes, I want to do this. It is definitely in that consultation call. Is just a place, again, for me to also know, can I help you? Is what's going on in your life something that I can do, or do I need to send you someplace else?
Very nice. Of course, I will link all of that in the show notes for parents to connect with you guys further. I guess my very last question is any parting advice for ADHD parents for a less chaotic 2026.
Yeah, the biggest one, I think, is give yourself grace. Give yourself grace, give your children's grace, understand it's going to be hard. Put some fun in there somehow, so that even the worst days can be okay. And I would say lots of encouragement would be really probably important during that time.
That was the perfect send-off, Peggy. Thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Before we wrap, I just want to say this. If this episode felt like someone finally put words to what your family experiences, that's not an accident. That's Peggy. Peggy, thank you for bringing us so much clarity, compassion, and actual usable tools to a conversation that is usually full of guilt and unrealistic expectations. You remind parents that ADHD isn't a moral failing. It's a different operating system, and when we understand it, phew, boy, everything changes. And to the parents listening, you don't need to overhaul your whole life. You do not need a perfect routine. You don't need to get it right all year. You just need to know how to reset after holidays, after breaks, after bad weeks, without losing connection or confidence along the way. These strategies are not just for January. They're for every time life gets loud and routines fall apart, which, if you're parenting ADHD, as you know, is quite often. Be sure to check out the Hallowell to Darrow team in the show notes. And if this episode helped you, please do all the things for the algorithm gods, like, subscribe, leave us a review, 5 stars obviously, but so much more importantly, I need you to share it with a friend who's in deep, deep chaos. And let's let Peggy's wisdom ripple out to the families who need it most. And stay tuned, New Year, Less Chaos is just getting started. This is Chaos and Caffeine. My name is Danielle, and I will see you next time. Okay, let's get real for a second. Parenting ADHD kiddos is exhausting, like soul-draining, brain-on-fire exhausting. And some days, just thinking about talking to a therapist, feels impossible. That's why I'm obsessed with Talkspace. Here's the game changer. You can text or chat with a licensed therapist whenever you need. No sitting in a room waiting, no awkward, hi at the start. Just real talk on your time in your space. If you're shy, anxious, or just flat out done with talking out loud, this is life-changing. You type, they respond, and boom. Support is literally in your pocket. It's therapy that actually fits into your messy, chaotic life. And for 2026, that's the energy we need. More calm, less guilt, and actual support that doesn't make your anxiety spike. Seriously. If you've been thinking, I need help, but I can't even, Talkspace is the perfect way to start.